Annual Red Eye. Please welcome Brennan Everline.
Good evening, and welcome to the District 3 Candidate Forums. We will first start with opening statements, starting with the candidate on the left, Ms. Adams.
Hi, my name is Gay Perry
Thank you. Hello, my name is Gay Perry Adelman. I am a PTA mom. I have been a PTA mom for the last 20 plus years since I have had children in public schools that long. I moved to Louisville 10 years ago and started a PTA at my son's school at Shawnee. And when we found my school was being set up to be turned into a charter school, we formed an organization called JCPS. And then when we realized this was a national effort, we started an organization called Save Our Schools Kentucky. I'm the co-founder of both of those, as well as the current president. I also serve on the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and I serve as the chair of the Coalition for the People's Agenda Education Committee, where we have been advocating within our schools on behalf of our most marginalized students for the past decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan.
No, hit the button right in front of you.
Do I have to hit it each
No,
time?
you can keep it on, but anything can be heard.
Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Sam Callan. I'm a retired JCPS principal. I retired January the 1st, 2022 of this year, and I have given my lifetime of work to public education. I was a principal for over 20 years in urban, suburban, and rural schools. I've worked with parents as a principal and as a teacher all of my life, and on site-based councils. That's been my passion. I've always been in high-need schools, except for 2 years I spent in a school that wasn't high needs. I am looking forward to possibly being on the board to give back to public education, which I've served.
Thank you. Mr. Craig.
My name is James Craig. I'm an attorney in the city of Louisville. I'm the father of 2 students who attend JCPS schools. I've got a freshman in Eastern High School, and I've got a 4th grader in Middletown Elementary. I've been on the Board of Education since 2018, hoping to represent District 3 on this board again for another 4 years. Proud to have the endorsement. I think of every organization that has given an endorsement in this race, our teachers union by their PAC, Better Schools Kentucky, the Global Association of Realtors, the Fairness Campaign, and others. Look forward to answering your questions and hearing from you tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Owen.
My name is Steve Ullum. I am father of an 11-year-old girl whose face is really red right now. I've been active in the JCPS system in terms of being a volunteer, room parent, PTA vice president, SPPM council, helping kids and just making sure that they have the best opportunities available to them. It's just something that's become a passion of mine. So, I want to serve the community. I want to serve our kids because, they're going to be our future community leaders. And I want to be a part of helping them mold the brightest future I can for them. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask general questions. My first question is, what specific skills would you bring to the board? And we'll start reverse order, Mr. Owen.
I think the most important thing that a leader can do is listen to the people that he or she serves. So the first thing I would bring to the table is the willingness to listen to parents, listen to private school parents on why they've chosen not to put their kids in public school. Homeschool parents, same thing. Public school parents, what are the good things and the bad things that they're seeing. Let's celebrate the good and let's work on fixing the bad. But also our teachers, our bus drivers, our staff members. If we want to know how to make things better and want to know how to move forward as a district, the answers are there. We just have to be willing to talk to people, sit down at the table together, work out differences in opinion that we have and find middle ground. But it's just going to take a group of people working together. That includes the community, parents, teachers, each other on the board, school administrators. And if we can start working with each other instead of against each other, it's going to solve a lot of the problems we have.
Mr. Peck.
Sure. What skills would I bring? I think reason, rationality, good common sense. The Board of Education, in my opinion, in Jefferson County, consists of 7 of the most important elected positions inside of the county. We're responsible for the futures of sometimes up to 100,000 students who are inside of our schools on a daily basis, facing incredibly complex issues in their daily lives. We have 7,000 students in our district who are homeless. We have more than 10,000 students who are learning English as their language for the first time. Students on IEPs, students with disabilities. They bring complex issues that require thoughtfulness and reason and the ability to work together with the other 6 members of the board to come to solutions for them. So that's what I offer. I'm not an extremist. I'm not an advocate. I'm not an activist. I'm just a sensible human being who sees the problems in our district and thinks that I can work with Ms. Porter, who is still here, and others to get what's best for our kids. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan.
Thank you. What skills can I bring to the table as a board member? I think that's probably one of the most important questions for us tonight. I am, first and foremost, an educator. My skill set is in education. I have an advanced degree in educational leadership and social justice. I have been involved in policy making in committees in different types of districts, from urban to rural to suburban. I've been responsible for SBDM councils for over 20 years as a principal. I have worked with all kinds of stakeholders, from community members to build playgrounds, to parents, to students, etc. I have worked in JCPS. I have been a practitioner, which I think is extremely important. I have worked with minority parents. I have worked with children in poverty circumstances. I have worked with their parents and community members who support these students. And I know what is needed because I've been in the trenches. I'm willing to ask the hard questions. And there are hard questions to ask. I'm not going to be a moderate. I'm going to be asking hard questions. Currently, test scores just recently came out. In 2019, we had 36 schools that were CSI. Now we have 34 after the pandemic, or basically after the pandemic. That's the same results, basically, people. It is time to ask the hard questions. Thank you.
Ms. Allen.
Thank you. I would like to say that I have been asking the hard questions. My problem is that I can only do it 3 minutes at a time, and sometimes I can't even do that because we just came out of the pandemic where for the last, I don't know, I guess it was about 18 months, the public wasn't allowed to comment at public meetings. So I am running for school board because I've done as much as I can as an outsider, making open records requests only to have them denied, looking at internal investigations that have been manipulated into covering up things that are taking place. And when I ask for more information, I'm told that it doesn't exist. So as a board member, I would be able to pick up where I have been hitting the wall and advocate for policy changes that prevent internal investigations from exhibiting bias, and making sure that we don't have paid employees also serving in outside organizations, and make sure outside organizations commit to honoring open records and transparency and looking out for the best interests of its members with a more horizontal communications process and a more horizontal election internal decision-making process. Just over time. So I have always wanted to be part of the solution, and we represent a district of choice. So we have an obligation in District 3 to represent all of JCPS, not just our district, because we are under a great deal of scrutiny because of our achievement gap. And that means the differences between some of our high-performing schools and low-performing schools based on race and poverty and disabilities. So we have an obligation to represent all of our district, and so that's what I am doing and have been doing, is bringing those voices to my board member who blocked me on social media for doing so. Thank you.
Our next question is similar, but it's different. Is there a particular issue that motivates you to serve on the Board of Education? Start with Ms. Adelman and work our way down.
So there are 100,000 reasons why I would like to serve on this board, and in fact, the number of students that we've seen decline over the past decade is concerning to me. We've lost students due to flight outside of Jefferson County, but also due to the pandemic, but also due to not being able to find a good fit within JCPS. So making sure that we are a district that provides good alternatives for our families that we serve, so that they don't need charter schools and vouchers. And we know that the people who have been bringing charter schools and vouchers to Kentucky have been doing so across other states throughout the country. And this is driven by outsiders with designs on our tax dollars who want to siphon money away from our schools and take away our ability to regulate how those schools are run and what curriculum is taught and whether or not they discriminate and push out. And public schools are our best chance, really, at having the ability to have local control. And in our legislation over the most recent years, we've lost local control. Site-based decision-making council, for example, has been further decimated to the point where it's nothing like it was 30 years ago when we first had CARA. So to answer your question, Brandon, big picture, I would really like to see comprehensive, sweeping education reform like we did 30 years ago. Kentucky led the nation with education reform 30 years ago, and we can do it again. And as a board member, I will work with other leaders and board members across the state to form a coalition of like-minded individuals that care about the future of our public schools and make sure that we stop predators from attacking them. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan.
Thank you. Not used to this extra time. We've given 2 minutes. Thank you. Is there an issue that is the reason why that I'm most concerned about? I think all of us probably have a handful of issues, not just one. It's difficult to select just one issue that's driving me, and I'm sure everyone would agree with that. From teacher shortages to the student assignment plan that's been newly created, to current reading and math scores across the district, for me, which is what I want to talk about, what's going on before students get to kindergarten. As a practitioner in the field, I was an elementary school principal for over 20 years. And when children got to kindergarten, we saw immediately that gap start going like this. And as they entered first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, it just kept getting wider and wider, and everyone was pounding, reduce the gap, reduce the gap. You've got to reduce the gap. Well, a child across the district, on this end of the district, started kindergarten knowing all of his or her ABCs, and I'm going to say 1, 2, 3s just to be trite. And then another child on another part of the district or in the middle part of the district didn't enter kindergarten knowing those things, didn't even know how to line up. And that gap is very difficult to close. So what I'm most interested in is looking at, is building as much as I can into early childhood instruction. Thank you.
Mr. Craig.
Issue I'm passionate about and why I want to run. I chose to run in 2018 because at that time our district was under attack. We were under an investigation by the Kentucky Department of Education and the Board of Education in Frankfurt which threatened our district's independence. With the work of my colleagues, I'm proud that issue is now behind us. We entered into a corrective action plan with Frankfurt, checked every box on it. We're able to maintain control over our district inside of the city of Louisville now, thanks to our board's work. Going forward, I'm running again because I've got a vision for 3 separate items that I want to have input in as we move forward. One, the student assignment plan, which just changed the way that we assign students to school for the first time since 1984. Passed the board unanimously on June 1st of this year, and I want to make sure that along with my colleagues that we work to implement that plan with fidelity, ensuring annual audits are done correctly, and that we are reporting back to the community that we are delivering results and improving outcomes for our students as a result of that plan. Number 2, rebuilding the infrastructure of our district. We have more than 155 school buildings in our district, and more than 40% of them are past the end of life based on any metric available to us. In my first year on the board, we voted to build 4 new schools in the district. We're about to build 3 new for Grace James and the Boys Academy and the new middle school that's going up in the west end of Louisville. And on the facilities committee that I serve along with Ms. Newman, the president of the PTA, we're working on a plan that will have us build up to 20 new schools inside of the district over the course of the next 10 years. That is exciting and passionate work, and I can't wait to see it come to fruition. And then finally, coming to the end of the pandemic, overcoming the learning loss that our district, along with every other district in the country, experienced as a consequence of that, is going to take good, diligent work on behalf of this board, and I'm up for that challenge. Thank you.
Mr. Hall.
I chose to run because I saw a lot of self-inflicted issues that I wanted to address. And most of them, in my opinion, could have been avoided. During the school closure times, private school parents who had the means to send their kids to private school, their kids were allowed to go to school. But public school parents weren't allowed to send their kids. For far too long, an entire year, our kids were shut out of the classroom. Not only was it unnecessary, but we created these learning losses ourselves. We widened the achievement gaps ourselves. This could have been avoided. The issues that we're having with teacher and bus driver shortages. From the teachers and bus drivers I've spoken to, again, these are self-inflicted wounds. We've got discipline and behavior problems in our schools that are out of control. And it is a top concern of teachers and bus drivers, and dozens of them have come to me and said it's the #1 reason people are leaving. Courier Journal did a study on this as well as Representative Bojanowski from Frankfurt. They cited a lot of the same things, such as aging buildings sorely in need of air circulation systems and other renovations that district leaders had little interest in fixing. They felt they didn't have appropriate disciplinary support to curb those behaviors. I know teaching for me is not sustainable. This job has impacted my mental health more than I believe the job should. Another one stated, a 37-to-1 student-teacher ratio and unsafe working conditions. Another one,
We'll now move on to more school-specific questions. District scores on state standardized tests consistently show that low-income and minority students lag significantly behind other students. What do you believe should be done to close these gaps? This time we'll hang out in the middle. Mr. Todd.
Okay, so the question was, what are we going to do for low-income and minority students, correct? So 2/3 of the schools in Kentucky that are in red, we'll say, are Jefferson County schools currently. And of those schools in Jefferson County, one in 7 kids, I believe, belongs to a CSI school, and 4 out of 5 Black students belong to a CSI school. I approach this theoretically and with practicality. First of all, children who are behind need extra time. They need supports that other children do not need. They need extra time and supports. They need great teachers. We have great teachers. We really do. A lot of times low-income and minority students don't have ways to get to school before school and to stay after school. We need programs that are going to support low-income and minority students and their families for extra time. Okay, it's not just about extra resources and throwing extra resources. Our schools have quite a bit of resources. So I feel that that's pretty adequate, and I think that is always getting better. Minority students and students who are low scoring need extra time, and we need to look how we're teaching in elementary school.
Mr. Craig?
Thank you very much. Study after study shows that students succeed when there are more people in the building interacting with them. That is a resource, and we need to deliver those resources in the form of additional teachers and additional mental health professionals and additional humans in the building to our schools that need it the most. We need to understand that schools that are high concentration of free and reduced lunch, high poverty, should be staffed differently than a school that is not. And we recently made a promise to the community that we were going to start to work on that in 2 different ways. We're budgeting for our schools differently than we did previously, taking into consideration the needs of the individual students inside of the building, making sure that high poverty schools, yes, they do need resources, and delivering those resources to them, and then doing our best to lower the student-teacher ratio inside those buildings at the same time. We made that promise in part as part of the student assignment plan that we passed in June of 2022, and we made that promise as in part of the last budget that we passed for this upcoming school year, working to make sure that both those plans are implemented with fidelity and then ensuring that the results of those plans are audited again and revealed to the community to determine whether or not we're actually delivering on those promises, in my opinion, is the way to solve this challenge. Thank you, sir.
To close the achievement gap, there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer, but there's not really a policy you can put in place to do this. You know, it's about evaluating each individual child's needs as they come up. I do believe we have to find out where a lot of these needs exist at a younger age. I don't think a letter grading system has much merit for elementary school kids. I believe that a more standards-based grading system in elementary school would help identify areas where kids are struggling early so we could get them the one-on-one attention they need. But getting over this gap, getting over this learning loss, it's going to take a community effort. We've got to work together with nonprofit organizations, churches and places of worship, retired teachers, substitutes, current teachers. We have after-school child care services. We ought to have after-school tutoring services at the school. There's ways that we can address these needs, but the school can't do it on its own. The need is far too great. It has far-reaching root causes that don't originate in the schools, but we as a school board have the responsibility of managing it when those kids walk through our front doors. So I think we just need to do a better job of working together. That's all.
Thank you. The way we address the student achievement gap is first by listening to the stakeholders, our teachers, our parents, members of organizations that are here tonight, and our students and our community members and leaders have been telling us for at least the last decade that I've been paying attention, what the solutions are. And we have seen leaders shut down those dialogues. We have seen Frankfurt disrespect JCPS in particular, and a lot of that has to do with bias. Some of it's conscious, some of it's unconscious. So we have to make people aware that bias exists, and we have to recognize that bias and call it out when it happens. Also, we need smaller class sizes, but we also need to make sure that we don't have high pockets of poverty or minority students in our schools, because when you have high saturation of poverty, it's really difficult for one or two or three parents to really pull that whole school up and pull their fundraisers up, for example. I did an open records request a few years ago because I read in the Red Book that PTAs are required to keep track of their fundraising and their budgets, and I requested that information from JCPS because I didn't want to put the burden on PTA of asking them to provide records and go through all that hassle. I just simply did an open records request because that data should have already existed. There were assumptions made that I was stirring the pot or trying to undermine PTA, when in fact what I was really trying to do was point out the disparities that exist when you have maps that look like this. I went to a student assignment forum where the way the district described it was, this is self-explanatory, and it's not. People who don't live in West Louisville don't look at the map from a West Louisville perspective. And so we have to be honest. We have to be willing to have faith in our community, to educate them about what's really happening and the role that we play in society, and let them make the best decisions based on the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. Shortages of teachers and staff in schools has become a nationwide issue, and JCPS is no different. How do you plan on addressing this issue? Start with Mr. Olin.
In the building, with the teacher shortages, I mean, what they're telling us is how we fix it. We have got a big discipline and student behavior issue. JCPS has openly stated that it's backed off on disciplinary procedures, especially for more minor offenses. But it's also backed off on using the right disciplinary procedures on major offenses. I'll give the example I gave a week ago of the incident at Iroquois High School last October. When a gun was found on a student, the school's response was to send the gun back home with the father. So when the police arrived, after they were called 2 hours later, there was no gun, there was no student, so there was no report. When we overlook major issues like that, we're sending a message to our kids that there are no consequences to what you do, that you can keep doing what you want and you're not going to pay for it. We're seeing it on our buses. Our bus drivers do not have the support that they need. They do not have monitors on the buses to help them with the behavior issues. And when the student is sent off a bus for these behavior issues, a couple days they're right back on. And then we have statements from teachers that the referrals they're writing are not being supported by administration. They're being lectured for why they wrote the student up rather than the issue being addressed. So until we can make our schools a better environment for kids to learn and a place where people are going to want to come to teach, we're going to continue to have the same problems.
Mr. Craig.
Thank you, sir. Solving the teacher shortage requires us to do two things. We need to figure out how to retain teachers, and we need to figure out how to recruit new teachers. On the recruitment side, we have to acknowledge the fact that from a nationwide perspective, there are fewer students in education programs throughout the country right now. There are fewer students in education programs at the University of Louisville and at Bellarmine inside of the city of Louisville than there were 10 years ago. And so if there's not a pool of candidates from us from which to hire, then this problem is going to persist for a period of time. JCPS has to be a part of that front-end solution in ensuring that those programs are resourced and staffed as well. And we have entered into a number of really interesting programs over the course of the last 4 years to do that. We have an agreement with our city's historically black college students to support them in their efforts to train teachers and to hire teachers directly from them as well. retaining teachers. We need to listen to our teachers and understand why it is that they are leaving. They don't feel like they are respected in their profession, like the trained and credentialed professionals that they are. There are several different things that we have to do and that we have started to do already under this current board. One, paying them more than a cost of living adjustment on an annual basis. Teachers over the course of the last 10 years, if you were to study their salaries, we have not even kept up with the cost of living as we have raised each individual year. So for the first time this year, teachers got a 4% raise, but that still does not bring them back to the power of the dollar that we paid them 10 years ago. Also making sure that they're able to actually practice their profession inside of the school, free from overburdensome administrative tasks, is something that we must do better. We consistently hear that they'd like to see fewer walkthroughs, fewer professional trainings, fewer busy work meetings over the course of their day so that they can actually focus on the students inside of the classroom. And we need to deliver that message more forcefully to the JCPS superintendent. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan.
Thank you. I also believe that it's about retaining who we have and recruiting who we need, and some things in between. We have to travel this country to recruit people, not just teachers, to our system, which is a wonderful place to work because I've worked here. We have wonderful schools, we have wonderful staff, and that's a wonderful town to live in as well. So recruiting, be very proactive in recruiting people who fit our needs and our wants, whether that's through the college level and through job fairs, etc. Retaining teachers, yes, it's about salaries, absolutely. It's about increasing those. It's about doing what the board has said that they were doing 10 years ago. It's always about that. I've been in the field for a long time, and it comes up, well, we need to do this more. We need to give teachers more voice. We need to take tasks off teachers. We need to do fewer walkthroughs and so forth. That never happens. It always becomes more. It always becomes more. I promise you. I've been in the field. I know. It becomes more and more and more, and you can't do your job. You can't focus, which is the main part of your job, on children. We need to think about the mental health of our staff and our teachers and find ways that are progressive to help them during the school day. We need to make sure that their classrooms are resourced appropriately. We need to treat them as the professionals that they are and quit telling them and dictating to them what they do every second of the day. Thank you.
Ms. Allen.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, there are outside groups and predators and others who have designs on our public schools, and it does not benefit us as taxpayers or our students or our educators. So the first thing that we have to do is stop trying to do the same things over and over and expecting different results. We have to get to the root cause issues that are causing the behavior issues that were mentioned earlier, although I will tell you, I have talked to a lot of teachers and they tell me the reasons they are leaving is not the behavior of the students. We are coming off of a pandemic. People have been struggling. There is a lot of trauma in our schools. We have to make sure that mental health is being addressed. We have to make sure that one-on-one relationships are being restored and that we are getting these kids into the buildings, because there's a lot of truancy and there's also a lot of challenges with our buses, and a lot of students still are running late. And so I hear rhetoric right up here at this table that we respond to instead of calling it out for what it is, such as the behavior, blaming it on the behavior. And there are people that are running in every single one of these open seats. We have 4 open seats. There is a candidate that is being endorsed by the Liberty Caucus running for every single one of these seats. And these people are not looking out for the best interest of our students, especially our students in the margins. And so therefore making sure teachers have the support and the resources, because more than 70% of our students are living in poverty today. More than 50% of our students are non-white. We, as District 3 residents, are actually guests in a system. We are not the dominant race in this system. We need to tread more lightly and not come into schools and demand that our needs be met when we've got students and teachers in really struggling situations. And I'll have to answer the rest of my question on another time, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to our last question, I'd like to restate a rule we said at the beginning. Please refrain from attacking other candidates. We are here to discuss issues. Thank you. This last question comes to the audience. If you have school-aged children, are they currently enrolled in JCPS? If not, why? Start with Mr. Olin.
I do have a school-age daughter, and she was enrolled in JCPS, and she no longer is. And I'm proud of that decision, because I think every parent should have that decision. I chose to remove my daughter because there was no clear definition of when we were ever going to go back to school, or if we were ever going to go back to school. When I saw the learning losses, and I saw the stress and the anxiety and the depression take over in our household, I did what every parent should do. And I did what was in the best interest of my child. And any parent that approaches me and tells me that they feel like private school is the best choice for them, fantastic. Everybody deserves the right to choice. And I'm never going to condemn anybody for making the choice for what's best for their child. But on the flip side, I have no personal motivation for being here today. I have nothing to gain by being on the school board. My child has nothing to gain by me being on the school board. I'm doing this because I'm passionate about kids, plain and simple. Every kid and every parent deserves to have a choice about where their child goes to school, because every single child has different needs. And no parent and no child should ever make me feel bad because they made a choice that they thought was best for them. Since then, I've seen my daughter absolutely excel in athletics, excel in academics, and I stand by that decision, and I encourage every parent to make the decision that's best for them.
Mr. Preston.
Yes, I've got skin in the game. I said earlier, I've got a freshman at Eastern High School, and I've got a fourth grader at Middletown Elementary. Been an active member of both of those schools in my son's middle school before he progressed to high school. They're fantastic institutions. I don't really begrudge anybody their individual choice, but I want us to fully understand the statistics that govern the policy that this Board of Education makes. At any given time, we have about 80% of the school-age eligible children inside of Jefferson County. We're not a majority-minority city, but we are a majority-minority district. We're not a high-poverty city, but we are a high-poverty school district. And the reason that the school district has those statistics is that we do lose 20% of our students inside of the city to the private system. I've always thought that if JCPS could endeavor to pull some of those kids back into the district, all ships would rise with rising waters. Students succeed when the classroom is not high poverty, and doing our best to get those kids back into the district would do a lot for the overall collective good of the city. No, I don't begrudge anybody their personal decision, but I want to make sure that this district is as attractive and working as well as it can for every single student in the district, in the city. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan.
First of all, that's a highly personal question. Are you allowing personal questions? You are. And why are you smiling like that?
We've allowed questions from the audience.
Okay, that's a highly personal question that has nothing to do with me, so I'm not answering it. Number two, I've given my life to public education, to JCPS. My child or my children or anybody else that I have adopted have nothing to do with JCPS and whether or not I can serve on a board or any board. That is not a question that is appropriate. Thank you.
And I'm surprised Steve you answered that question.
I'm proud of my choice, so.
We're gonna have to move on. Ms. Allen.
Thank you. So, I apologize if my statement earlier sounded as if it was an attack. I'm wanting to share facts, such as my opponent stated that he has nothing to gain by serving on the board, and that may be true, but someone is pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into these candidates' races. Both of the candidates to my far left have more than $200,000 invested in their campaigns, compared to a PTA mom that has been able to raise like $5,000. So that's 100 to 1 spend. And yes, I do have a son who graduated from the Academy at Shawnee. He had amazing experiences there as a pilot. He went to the Aviation Magnet. And because of all the leadership opportunities that he had through ROTC and the Challenger Learning Center that has been shut down, unfortunately, and not provided the same opportunities that students had when my son was there. I want to see every student in the district have the opportunity to excel like my son did. He was accepted to the Naval Academy and is now a Marine pilot, and he's living a dream that every student should have the ability to choose what school is best for them within the district, and we should make sure that we have schools that meet the needs of our families. And we have to acknowledge that teachers need the support. If I could finish answering that other question you just, I have 30 seconds. Our teachers, we talk about that having no consequences, and we talk about bullying behaviors, and we talk about we're supposed to be doing restorative practices in our schools, but we as adults need to lead by example, because we have no consequences when we sweep things under the rug or don't tell the truth. And when we have administrators who bully, and when we have disagreements that we've had with PTA, I would love to have a restorative meeting with PTA. Thank you.
I think something is awry here. No. I see you laughing and smiling with this person. No, I think something is extremely unprofessional. No,
Thank you.
extremely.
But right now, we are going to continue on
No,
with the closing
you just-
statements. If you would not like to continue on with the
I will
closing
continue,
statement.
but I see something extremely unprofessional.
I am here smiling. I have asked people to
No,
stop when
ma'am.
they are.
I know.
Excuse me.
I know what I
Thank
see.
you, and I appreciate your contending tonight. But we will move on to closing statements, and if you cannot do so at this time, you are asked to leave.
I know what I see.
We'll now move on to closing statements. We'll start with Ms. Allen.
Okay. So, one of the things that I started to say a second ago when my time was up, I would just maybe like to finish. I have simply been doing what I felt was in the best interest of the people who come to me for support. It started when I was a PTA president at Shawnee. It started when I was a site-based decision-making council member. It started when teachers who experienced retribution and retaliation of being pushed out of their schools, especially teachers of color, the patterns persisted and persisted. I brought these concerns to the administration. Donna Harkins was the superintendent at the time. She pushed to have me removed from 15th District PTA. They held an emergency meeting and voted me off because Donna Harkins didn't appreciate that I spearheaded a rally asking her to step down a few years ago. And so there's been a lot of misinformation. There's been a lot of spreading rumors, and I never got a chance when I ran to try to get back onto the board. I never got my tribunal because there was thousands of dollars of fines if I ever spoke publicly about the tribunal results and what they would be. So I would like to invite you before the election date. I would like to invite you to have a dialogue with me about the things that happened and see if we couldn't clear the air, because the damage that has been done from those early days continues to this day, and I'm simply literally fighting for our schools harder than anyone else at this table. Thank you. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Cowan.
Thank you. I want to reiterate that I am a veteran educator, and I definitely want to give back. I have a high degree in education, I believe that my experience and my passion and my lifetime of work gives me a path to this role. I would love to be able to give back to the field and to students who I've worked with all of my life. There's two things I'm very good at, and that is listening to others and to also picking up on things. And I have sat in, this is now the third forum of debate, and I have watched people in the audience laughing at people saying, giving answers to questions with a person up here. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and what's gone on tonight is ridiculous as well, very unprofessional. You won't find that for me, I won't allow it. Things have to be professional, and I don't make fun of people just because they're different. And when we have people who do, that's a problem, because we have lots of kids who are different, and they don't deserve to have that model.
Mr. Craig?
This is an incredibly complex and important job. You said earlier, 100,000 students, a $1.8 billion budget, close to 1.6 actually for the upcoming year, 17,000 employees. JCPS touches the lives of every corner of this city every single day. It's governed by a board of 7 people. It's an important position, and it requires rational, reasonable human beings sitting at the table to make that decision. I hope I offer that form of leadership for District 3, and I would like to come back to any other questions.
Mr. Alter?
Well, thank you all for having us and for giving us the chance to talk. Like I said earlier, I'm running because kids are a passion of mine. I think all of them deserve every opportunity they can have, every resource we can provide them to make the best they can of their lives. We see a lot of issues going on in our school district, and I really want to put common sense back into the debate. We talk about neighborhoods and students that are marginalized or forgotten or not funded like they should be. But the school board we have makes votes on where that funding and where those resources should go. So if we have areas of our community that are underfunded and underappreciated, that's another self-inflicted wound. We have the power to fund the schools that we choose, to fund the schools that have the greatest need. And I think we need to start looking at where the need is and addressing things based on simple common sense. What the kid looks like doesn't matter. What neighborhood the kid lives in doesn't matter. We need to see people for people, kids for kids. And where the greatest need exists, that's where we need to put our efforts. It's not rocket science. It doesn't take new policies to make that happen. It just takes common sense. And that's the kind of thing I want to start talking about, is using common sense again. Thank you for having us.
I would like to thank all of the candidates for being here tonight. Thank you for answering questions, and hope you have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a